Well, there we go. So what do we have? We have Tom de Riddick from Belgium, and he brought his creation, the Rodec console, MX Modular console, right?
Correct.
And we're processing, well, Tom has been in charge of the LinnDrum going into his console. He's going to show you what this console can do because I'm blown away. This is like a dream thing for me because I've always wanted to have a Class A, you know, like SSL or some, you know, great vintage console, analog console, but be able to do the things that I could do, like I hear DJs do, and have filters and have distortion and have everything at my fingertips. And here it is. It's like the perfect sidecar. And we're using that in conjunction with a Minimoog processed through the Sherman 2. You can see that from above somewhere. You can see it from right here. Okay, great. So this is the Sherman 2, and I've had this in my basic wall rig forever. People have asked me for a long time about, you know, doing a video on it, and this is the perfect time to do it because there's a new invention that's coming out, and it's the, would you call it the cousin or the little brother or the little sister?
The little cousin.
Little cousin.
Of the filter bank.
Okay, so let's start just there just to show, like there's a lot of stuff here, right? But we're talking about just this one module right here.
Yeah, so just this one module is called the Sherman and Rodec Mini Styler. So basically, after the filter bank, Sherman did the restyler in the 90s together with Rodec. And the restyler was aimed at DJs and producers to process rhythmic sounds. So where the filter bank was more versatile, the restyler focuses on drum loops and beats. And it has been built by Sherman and Rodec, and it stopped like 10, 15 years ago. And now that Rodec is back, we also wanted to bring back the restyler, but in a new format so that it fits within this modular mixer. And we called it the Mini Styler. It only has 6 buttons, and you cannot get it wrong.
Right. You can't get it wrong. And what he means is that no matter where you turn the knobs, you're going to get sound. You're not going to get lost. Sometimes you can, in more complicated systems, like maybe even in the Sherman Filterbank, which is amazing. And once you figure it out, it doesn't take that long. It's not as mysterious as people make it out to be. But you can get to places where there isn't sound passing through, and you have to find where you are. With the way Tom is telling us about the Mini Styler, that's not going to happen, right? You're going to get signal.
That shouldn't happen. We carefully looked at all the pots so that in all situations you get sound and you immediately realize what's going on. Whereas with more complex machines like the filter bank, that's not always the case. This is used for performance reasons, and when you're in a performance, you don't want to search what you have to do. You're doing multiple things at a time, and so you want to have an easier version at your fingertips.
And we're standing up, right? Like DJs. I mean, this is what I like. And I always wanted a Rodec restyler, you know, and I could never find one, but it was a great thing for DJs. It was like stereo filters, basically, and you'd have a high pass, low pass, and band pass filter. You can change modes, but you can do the crossfades like a DJ.
Yep.
So you can have 2 different inputs and then crossfade them and high pass filter them out and do the classic DJ stuff. And I thought, well, this is what I want for my synths. I want to do that kind of stuff. But I never could find it, and I've been making it work out with the Sherman. But this little module is pretty cool. And also, what I said earlier about having a console and the quality, like just hearing the LinnDrum just dry going through, it's like reminds me of when I used to go into recording studios and put it through. And now you have something that's like bringing your giant console around, and it's really like a small console.
I did put a little bit of reverb on the snare, so it's not completely dry. So it's going into the preamps that we have here, and then it's mixed with a little bit of verb that's also included in this console.
Right, so when you say reverb, it's built in
belongs
DSP.
To the console, so we have a 2 independent effects units, reverbs and delays that you can put on any of your channels.
So it's basically an analog console, but you have added digital effects to it.
Right, full analog console. We do have a USB input of 18 ins and outs, so you can track your gear through it. You can also sum from your computer into it, but obviously it's built for recording analog gear and playing with instruments.
Yeah.
In conjunction with a computer, so a hybrid setup.
That's what I want to do, because you basically have 8 analog inputs. Each one could have a preamp, EQ, you can get great distortion out of it, and then you have 8 more, and there's more to it, I'm just giving you the basic like way I look at it. 8 extra channels where you can put Ableton Live or another feed basically of something that you want to play, or just 8 more instruments. You can run them through preamp, and then
Get them in here. Yeah.
You have control basically of 16 channels, but 8 of them you can really dial in the sound and get the coolest saturation, and interesting things that happen with harmonics. And what we were just playing was an example of that, just breaking it down to 2 really simple elements, 2 sound sources, a LinnDrum and a Minimoog. And then the Minimoog was going through the channels. We took the direct outs of the Minimoog into the direct input channels. So Tom could EQ them and balance them and mute them and do that sort of thing. And then he was able to run whatever instrument he wanted into this mini styler, right? Just by busing it.
Just by routing. So I have the mini styler on one of the buses. And so I can route certain channels to bus 1. And then I basically insert the mini styler over that bus. But then the cool thing is I can also run these channels parallel to the master bus. And then I can balance the affected sound, the wet sound, with the original dry sound, so you still get the transients of the LinnDrum and then the processed sound of the mini styler, and blend that to a nice scratchy little sound.
Real scratchy. So, because you wanted to do this to do live music, right? This is why you made this, right? Was what you told me is you basically made it for yourself, the idea. People convinced you to not do it, right? But you wanted it for yourself.
I wanted it for myself because I've been making music in the 90s and the early 2000s, and went all the way from analog mixing desks to digital desks to in the box. And the fun was over for me when I was in the box. And then basically 20 years later, all things happened. I had different jobs. I wanted to go back into music, and I said I cannot just be behind my computer. I had all of this great analog gear. So I just wanted to do this.
And we're looking at each other, we're looking at the controllers, we're not looking at screens.
Nope.
We're not reaching for a mouse, we're not trying to find one parameter at a time. We can keep track of things easier. I mean, I think
we feel each other, and we just play and listen, and we're not distracted by bars or loops.
I mean, that's why I was so attracted to this, because it's like having a console on stage and you can perform on it. It's small enough and it's built so that there's that kind of flow. And I was just generally attracted to this because I wanted to use something like this, and I've been waiting for that. And then once I found Tom, like that he had this, I really wanted to just show you guys that it exists and what you can do with it. And I just think this is scratching the surface, adding a console to live performance, like how people add Ableton or whatever, because it's really easy to just turn the knobs. And I'm not familiar with it yet. I haven't spent the time. It just showed up today, and this is like before NAMM 25, right? So you're debuting a lot of this, right?
We're going to show this at NAMM in a few days. It'll be there, and then we'll see what the responses of the audience. We're pretty excited about it. We'll see what other people think of it.
Well, you want to show us a little bit about I mean, you don't have to just start on the mini styler, because there's a lot more to it. Just the basic walkthrough with the input and the EQs and some of the bussing and that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And then this
little crossfader
and the rock and roll aspect of it, right?
Yeah. So we haven't talked about this yet, but this upper part is basically a API 500 slot. So you can slot in API 500 series modules. We have the Elysia Expressor here, for example, that we've slotted in. We have our own.
We took it out of there, right? We have 6 of them in this cube. It's the Elysia cube, right? And Tom just popped it out and popped it into the Rodec.
Rodec. So it's compatible with all API 500 series modules, both mono and stereo. You can combine any number of mono and stereo channels. So if you only have mono slots or mono modules, you can just get 8 mono faders and then have mono slots in. What I did here is a combination of 4 mono slots and 2 stereo slots, and then I've put it in 2 stereo things here. This last one here is basically what we put on bus 1. So the 8 channels go into the 8 faders here, and then on bus 1 you can have an additional 500 series slot that you can insert on that bus.
And it has its own input, so you can drive it and distort it before you get in
what
there.
I wanted was always to have overdriven and saturated input, and then immediately a makeup button, an output, so you can keep the full fader resolution when you're basically playing. Because if you overdrive it, you have to do like this. Now you can bring it back here,
bring
and then
the
you
gain
can
back
still
down.
Because you don't have time when you're performing. You want to perform like a DJ. So this is my left brain is the DJ brain. That's also why we're standing up.
Perfect.
We want to DJ with stems instead of DJ with full tracks. That's why we don't have to remember, I put this on 6. No, you basically can do all the volume settings here, and then you have the faders to bring dynamics in your mix and to bring them down and up. And then the other part of my brain is the high-end audio. I like to have transformer and discrete op-amps on the preamps because it gives the nice saturated sound that we miss today in a lot of emulations.
Yeah, you can't get it. I mean, you can't get the distortion, for one, and we've talked about this so many different times, but distortion appears from the knowledgeable sources that I've spoken with, like distortion is a very difficult thing to recreate with digital. Not that we can't ever do it, because we're all progressing along, but right now, like the distortion and sort of the anomalies and things that do the flares, you know, they think these sounds just flare up, feedback things and all that just happen, and we love them. And that's one of the things that's great about this. And you mentioned how you like using it also, not just in live performance, but like as capturing things that you're going to record, right?
Capturing ideas. So I run a couple of instruments through it, and I let it play for like 30 minutes, and I do all kinds of stuff, and I record this in multiple tracks again into my DAW. And then when I'm done with my performance, I can go into the DAW. I still have all my separate tracks. I can even have the wets of the effects separately. I can cut out the nice things, and I can balance it out into something usable.
Perfect.
And then sum it again through this mixer to get great analog summing. So it's used for tracking, used for performing. I see this as an instrument, and then used for summing. It's just a companion to have in a hybrid setup like this.
And it allows the DAW to be a DAW and do what it does the best. And then when you want to bring somebody like a friend in like this to process sounds and be more spontaneous, right?
Yeah.
With the color changes and all that sort of thing, you can do that. And then you go back to the DAW, and that's where maybe you do your selections, right? And pick what you like and edit and non-linearly cut things, you know, like maybe what you did, you can jump around.
Yeah, we have nothing against DAWs, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
But you, in that 30 minutes, there's probably a good 5 minutes of greatness. And then you use your DAW to do the post-production like you do your videos to bring that session into a condensed 5-minute great performance.
Yeah, it's like in music composition, there's like almost two minds, right? Is when you're being creative, you don't want to disturb the creative flow. You want to just keep doing it, but not everything that you do has to be the final thing. Or in writing, when you're a writer, you do drafts, right? And you keep drafting, and then you go into the DAW mode, so to speak, as a writer or as you know, writer of novels or composer. You go into the DAW mode where different side of your brain, and you're refining and dialing it in, distilling it down, making sense of it, thematic things, pulling it together. And this has been a missing element for me, because you can do it with effects and that sort of thing, but you don't have like the console part that you can get spontaneous with and do the composing part. It's all designed for just like one thing at a time, you know? And this, you can go on the tangent.
Yeah, and mixing has always been a technical thing with a few guys sitting behind a window. It's never been an instrument. It's never been only for DJs. DJs were the only artists that took a mixer on stage. Now I want to take that idea, but then bring a mixer as an instrument on stage, but also in your studio.
Yeah.
And that's, like I said, why we're standing up, because if you have to do this like this, it's not really it's like sitting with an electric guitar. It doesn't give you the vibe. It's not rock and roll enough.
It's body position.
Yeah.
It makes a difference. And how does it feel? Like you're doing it now. The lights are on you. You're standing up. You're performing on on a console.
It's a great setup. It looks like a DJ setup, basically.
Oh, just this whole, the whole
but
rig
instead
we're
of
putting here
instead
today.
of 2 Technics and records, we have the greatest of all here, the LinnDrum and the Minimoog, and then a couple of filter banks. So this is crazy. If we've prepared only like 5 minutes now, if we can prep a little bit, we could do.
Yeah. Well, we're just like don't prep.
performance.
Just let's just turn something on and see what happens.
Yep. There we go.
There you go.
So now we have the kick coming from channel 1 and
Dry. Now there's
Dry.
some reverb.
can
Delay.
bring in the snare. And turn the EQs.
A lot of color on those EQs.
Hi-hats. Bring in the rest of the.
Now let's put the mini styler in and get some distortion.
Yeah. So
And this is going to be Sherman Filterbank like distortion, similar.
let's first hear it dry. This is only the affected sounds.
So that's just the mini styler.
Yeah.
Yeah, mess with that a little bit. And this is all the LinnDrum tracks at the same time going in. You can also isolate only certain ones.
Negative modulation on the bandpass. I like it because it's. And then we can bring in the original sound. And we still have that transient, and we're not all losing it.
Yeah.
So
So it's parallel. You have the dry Linn signal with the wet.
yep. And parallel mixing is something that's used a lot in professional studios, not just with compression, but I like to do it with filters, because you can keep the vibe of the original sound and then sauce over the affected sound.
I just
Oh,
changed
there
the
we go.
pattern. Now we're in effect. Oh boy. There you go. I mean, this is just like first time just trying these boxes out, and I can see where this can go. And like you said, throw down for half an hour,
Yeah.
see what you get, listen to it. You can isolate, like still everything is pretty separated, right?
Yeah,
You
the
can-
full performance is recorded in separate stems, so you can still get something, correct errors, or use something in a different way, or put additional plugins in your DAW on that. So it's still all there.
And we've got the great expressor here. So how would you use, there are a couple things I want you to show us. Bring in the XY,
okay,
because that's a DJ thing, and then tell us what this big orange real estate is.
Yeah, so we have a crossfader. So basically, Rodec is founded by Roger de Klerk, Rodec, in 1958 already. And so at a certain time, so he was making amplifiers for bars, basically. And one time a bar asked Rodec, look, Roger, we would like to seamlessly switch between the radio and the jukebox instead of having to put cables in there. And he came up with this little thing, and he installed it in a bar in the late 50s.
Is that where DJs got it from?
Well, then that's Rodec came up with this. Then he started making little mixers, and then the crossfader always was a part of that, and obviously it got copied by everybody. Rodec was also the first one that put 3-band EQs on DJ consoles throughout the 80s, and this EQ is still the 1986 version of the original Roger de Klerk design, basically, that we've taken here. And so we've taken the crossfader concept a little bit further, so now you can crossfade with stems instead of with full tracks. So every channel has the option to put X through or Y, and this will then bring this sound either to the X or the Y position, or will always play, which allows you to, in your composition, to go there. There's this little button here which says post fader recording. If you press that, you will record all of your faders and crossfaders moves also. When you don't want it, you can record pre-fader, and then you record the full signals without the performance here. Obviously, a crossfader performance is very hard to do in a DAW. You can draw as many lines as you want, but you're never going to get the right timing and the feel that you get from doing this manually. So that's why we've foreseen both methods.
Can we hear that?
Yep. Let's turn it on. So for example, let's bring...
I'll switch beats again. Give us something different.
So I'm gonna... That's still the same beat.
It'll change.
Okay. So let's do something real simple. Put the kick on the X and the snare on the Y, and then this little hi-hats, let's put it on true, so it's always going to play. So if I go here, and you can...
Simple as that.
That's great. Sounds like a song from Front 242.
Now let's say you want to take that kick and process that and pump it.
Yeah. So
let's pump it.
Let's pump it a little bit. So first there's EQ, so this is all the way off. So this is standard LinnDrum, and now we can give it a little bit more bass. We can enhance the little transient that you have in there with even in narrow Q.
Okay, let's stylize it now with the mini style. Ooh.
And bring in a lot of
So that's
here.
The mini styler coming in. Oh.
Yeah, it's also on the little hi-hat. And the frog that you hear is basically the FM.
Yeah.
It's self modulating.
And we still have this in play. Great controller. Just creates instantly complex but grooving rhythms.
Just unscrew them and you plug them in somewhere else. There is also, look at this one going. Was still
might have been
self-oscillating. No, the resonance, as you can hear, is...
I love that it's self. So these units, like, and the Sherman's the same way too. These Sherman boxes, they're just not tame. The resonances they'll self-oscillate and they'll squeal and scream and go crazy on you, and we like that. So Tom just had to pull that one back a little bit.
And each module also has a mix button, so you can still put it to dry, and then you can take away the mayhem that you've caused if something goes wrong.
Yeah, instantly. See, that's the other thing, that to get to mayhem, but then to get out.
To get out,
and then
right.
when you also create that contrast, that's where music starts to happen, because it's like tension, release, you know, those kinds of contrasts in art make it interesting, right? And the console allows you to quickly move in and out of it. I just really like the idea of where you're going with it. This is the first time I've really ever seen a Class A, like you would consider it a Class A component console.
It has, as you can see on the pre's, so this one has discrete hand-soldered op-amps, 2 of our own designs. Then it has the LinnDrum transformers from a Swedish company called LinnDrum. This goes to 26 dBus of output. It has a lot of headroom, so that's how you get the great preamp sound.
That's how you get the distortion too?
You get the distortion on the first op-amp. This is more of a 70s design. This is saturating, and this is more of a cleaner one to drive the transformer. So you need a good op-amp to drive the transformer that has a good slew rate, so you can get all of those transients through. The same is on the output stage that drives the XLRs out. It has the same op-amps, the modern ones, and the same transformers. So you get that air in this machine. For me, it's not about measuring. Obviously, we measure, but we always listen. We've built on this console for 3 years, and the only thing we did was with 5 friends listening and listening and listening until we were happy, and then redesigning and redesigning. So it's built by artists that only listened. Obviously, we had electronic engineers helping us out. We basically had our most important engineer is a guitar amp builder, because he knows everything about saturation. And saturation is what makes a set like this more rock and roll.
So there's the rock and roll element.
It's missing in a lot of consoles that want to be very clean and very transparent, but they miss out on saturation. And setups like this and music today, I think, could use a little bit more distortion and saturation. The mids are important. That's why we have specific parametric mids here, because the mid is where the action happens in music.
Well, that's like a guitar amp head, right? It's all about the mid, whether you're scooping the mid out. Can you do those different types of shapes too with the mids?
Because it's parametric, so you can choose the frequency of the mid, and you can take it back or bring it forward. And that really gives you, if you feel it here on your chest, then you know that's where the rhythm is. Today we hear a lot of low end and a lot of sizzling high end, but there is a big dip in the middle that for me does the trick more. So I'm hoping that we can bring some of that back into music.
And in contrast, sometimes to scoop it out too, because you have really sharp, and it sounds really cool when you do that.
You can
like a
get
bandpass type of thing almost. And these are all retrofittable. You can put in, like, these are the modules that you made with that kind of mindset of guitar amp in conjunction with high-end console channel, components, right? But you can put anything 500 series.
Will work. One more thing about this guy here. This is a stereo 500 module, but you can see it has 3 colors. So we make a mini module, and then you can put them in here and build your own channel strip, because a lot of components like a good preamp, they probably don't need the full stereo slot, and this way we can save real estate and we can slot them in like this. We've opened up this format as an open source format, and we hope other manufacturers... This little slot here,
would it go in a single too, or just a double?
Just in the double. It's all stereo, and so we hope to get some of the Eurorack enthusiasts to also build pro audio things.
In this format?
In this format. We take care of the power supply, we take care of the audio, so you can build it very easily and very cheap. It's published on our website, and you can just...
Then they build their own strips, so you're not like having to use somebody else's like compressor EQ. You can make different ones.
Yeah, make your own channel strip, as you would do with plugins in your DAW.
Yeah, right.
You can slot them in, and these are daisy chains, so this one goes into this one and then goes into the filter, basically. And if you don't like this filter, you put in another filter. You need you from another brand, and you make your own setup. So that's why it's called a modular, because it's supposed to be how you see your performance.
And what's the orange? That was my last thing.
I wanted to have a color that sticked out, and I was browsing to my RAL RAL colors, you know that, and the luminous orange just stuck out.
Oh, that was as simple as
stood out, and I said, okay, I want luminous orange in here
for the stereo.
For the stereo ones, so that every console looks a little bit different, and then also the 108 has the luminous orange, and it brings color to otherwise very dull-looking black consoles.
And yeah, it does make a big difference. And so the 108s that you mentioned, those are preamps, right?
Those are stereo preamps, so they basically use two of these, of the vintage preamp, that you can then fully drive, but they don't have the transformers. And so they also have the makeup gain out button, so you can, and there's a plus 30 dB button if you want to go all crazy on it, but then...
let's hear that.
Let's see what... this is just...
Try a different beat. Explore them
I can show it here. So I'm going to turn off the filter bank. So now we have this one here. Now we can... Sorry boys.
That's all right.
And we can now fully crank it. We almost killed the engineer. There we go.
I'll go simpler and let it fry. Adds a lot. All of a sudden it's interesting, the simple beat.
And we can...
Okay.
We're frying.
Yeah,
there we are.
That's the point.
That's the point. That's where the secret button is there.
That is a secret button.
If you don't have enough, you can still push. This one goes up to 11, like, you know, button.
It goes past 11.
Also, just gently pushing it into the orange will bring in some harmonics that you maybe don't identify as saturation, but it helps blend the mix together easily. And that's why I have issues trying to set the volumes in my DAW. Yesterday, I tried to prepare a little demo track, and I just had my MacBook and 4 channels, and I was putting the volumes, and I had to restart like 17 times. And here it's just, it's easier for me. So
it's way easier.
I'm not going to say it's better. It's just easier.
It's also, you don't have to even know where you're going. And then what I like is that once you kind of find something, you can follow it. You're not just completely lost, like, you know, like just got lucky. You can find it and then go somewhere that you might take, where you might want to hear it go. So please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. That really helps us out a lot. We listen to your comments. We read them, and we when I say listen to them, we consider what we could do with the channel. You know, it's a new year and we want to take it to a new place. Think Like a Synth, that's the course. It's the exact method that I've used for decades on records and films, and it's the one that I still use. It's really simple. It's how I can make sounds and know where I am, know where I'm going. So if you are interested in, you know, wanting to go deeper into synthesis, check out Think Like a Synth, and check out the Rodec console, because I think it's a synthesizer, and it's a DJ kind of setup, and it's a console, and it's an effects processing, you know, like a system. So all good. Let's go out on some music. All right, Tom. Yeah.